like to call this meeting of the Bellingham City Council Public Works Public Safety Committee to order. We have one item before us today, and that's a Northwest Youth Services lease. Ted, are you?
I'm prepared. Thank you. Good afternoon. Ted Carlson, Public Works Department. Before the council today is a lease agreement between the city and Northwest Youth Services to lease space in the federal building. What's being proposed is a below market lease. So per the Bellingham Municipal Code, it takes city council action. A requirement of that, as also laid out in the code, is that the city identifies a public benefit from the below market lease. And so attached in your packet along with the agenda bill is a letter of public benefit from the Executive Director of Northwest Youth Services, as well as a memo from Tara Sundin outlining why staff is recommending this lease agreement, which would be for no rent. So they would get the space free of charge. They would provide custodial work, so they would clean their offices, but the city would bear the cost of maintenance of federal building, as we do with all of the space, as well as the utilities, because utilities are not separated in this building. The term of the lease is being proposed for 24 months, so 2 years, which would start February 1st of 2015. During that time, Northwest Youth Services is working on building a new building that would provide them adequate space. The situation that they're under right now is they're running out of room. They're providing drop-in services for youth, and they just don't have the space in their current building and are having to use office space to provide some of the services to the youth that need those services. So what would happen under this agreement is their administrative staff would move out of their current location and go to the federal building, which would free up some space in their current building. There would be no drop-in services provided at the federal building. It would be for administrative services only, so we wouldn't have folks coming in, dropping in for services being provided by Northwest Youth Services. Again, this is temporary in nature while they build their new building that would adequately meet their needs. I would say, as pointed out in Tara's memo, that this was one of the things that the drop-in services for youth was one of the things that was identified as a real primary need during the mayor's community service work groups. So this is addressing that need. And both Tara and the mayor would certainly be willing to answer any questions that the council may have about the benefit, but we certainly believe that this is in line with what came out of those work groups and is a need to the public, and this would be a way of meeting that public need through this lease agreement.
Michael?
Thanks, Terry. Well, the Northwest Youth Services, I have no doubt in my mind they do extraordinary work, and their kind of services aren't actually available anywhere around. So I do believe they provide an enormous benefit to the community, and this says the estimated annual cost is just $3,960, and that's a small amount considering the value to the community. But I do have a question about the 24-month term, because we're planning on improving the building and moving city staffers into there. How will that interact?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. We will start our renovation project shortly after the first of the year, and we sat down with our project manager on the federal building renovation, as well as Jim Tinner, the building official, because we wanted to make sure that leasing space on the third floor, this would be on the third floor actually in the old Public Development Authority offices. That's another point, is that the offices are ready to go. They don't take any improvement by the city. And we wanted to make sure that the work that we're doing on the first floor, primarily the first floor, although we'll have some work throughout the building on some of the communications and HVAC and kind of the backbone of the building. But the determination was that it's not going to impact the renovation. There would be no additional cost to the city in terms of staging in a certain way that would continue to allow access to the third floor. That was a concern that we had. At the same time, we would continue to meet building code in terms of allowing access up to the third floor. So that was another concern. Both of those issues were, I believe, adequately addressed by Public Works staff and the building official, and that's why we're comfortable bringing it forward to council with our recommendation.
And what about the Whatcom Symphony Orchestra? Where are their offices? Are they third floor also?
They're also on the third floor. So we wanted to make sure that those two agencies that would be leasing space on the third floor, we always had adequate ingress and egress for them, and that indeed will be the case. And so, again, we felt like those issues were properly addressed.
Mayor?
Yeah, just to be clear, we did use the Community Solutions Work Group recommendations when we did this because we don't necessarily have a policy about how we do this, except that it has to come to the council. The Northwest Youth Services also is looking for funding for the drop-in center, which is one of their goals, and the rent that we will be donating to them can also be used as matching funds as they go after other money, which makes it something that we can do in kind rather than necessarily give the money up front. And as we fill up the federal building, obviously that's why we've made short-term agreements with people, because we're starting on the ground floor, we have the basement, we have the second floor before we get there. So I don't think that they would interfere with any transitions that we would have within the 2-year period. And we'll be giving good service to some young people that don't get it now.
Jack?
So it says provide direction. Are you just wanting a head nod from us, or do you want us to make a motion to approve the terms of this?
A motion.
Yeah, I think the latter.
You need to make
Yeah.
a motion because it would give us direction to put together the paperwork, but you make the decision on whether or not we're going to collect market-based rent. And we think this is a really good use of our resources.
So I would move to recommend approval of the lease terms as presented in the packet to Northwest Youth Services.
Okay. And I'm going to support this. This is a really valuable and really needed service. This is a population that I've spent years working with and recognize. We would hope that we wouldn't have these kind of problems of homeless youths, but we do. And, you know, it's youth without homes, with others, families that are just sharing apartments or a couch or a corner in somebody's house at night, and during the day there aren't places to go, and this drop-in center is really important to have for this population. So I will definitely support this. So we have a motion before us. All those in favor of recommending approval of this, answer aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. End of committee.
Thank you.